With that, ML Elrick with us here on the MegaCast. ML, I see you sporting your shirt there.
That's right. I'm pimping the show. I'm pushing the product.
Hey, we're down with that. We're down with that. So, ML, we used to work together years ago back at Fox 2. Since then, of course, so many of us know you from the Free Press, your Kwame investigation throughout the years, but also you're running for city council. Are you crazy?
Maybe just crazy enough that it might work. I've been a reporter for 30 years, and I'm at a point in my life where I want to focus more and more on my neighborhood and on the city of Detroit. You know, I started out as a City Hall reporter, expanded to covering Wayne County, then the state of Michigan. But as I get older and more involved in my neighborhood, I care more and more about local things more than larger things. And so as a city councilman, I'd be able to continue being a problem solver, continuing to try and make sure that we're getting what we deserve out of our government, that we're putting public service instead of self-service. And so to me, in a lot of ways, I know it seems kind of crazy, but it feels like a natural transition to me. And I hope that voters give me a chance to see what I can do.
So with that, there are some... there's a little bit of competition in the race up against you as well. Sure. But do you think your name and all of the work that you've done through the years is going to help give you the additional votes that you may need to get the seat?
Yeah, and when we talk about the work that I do, certainly the work I did at the Free Press, at Channel 4 and at Channel 2, people are aware of that. But I think that some of the work that I'm known for in my neighborhood is more like coaching baseball, softball, and soccer at Baldock Park and Messmer Park, which are right here in the district. Being on the school commission at our local Catholic school, being involved in neighborhood cleanups and serving as the East Outer Drive street representative, being a member of the East English Village Neighborhood Association Board, being a part of the Friends of the Alger Theater restoration effort, and just basically being a guy who, when something needs to be done in the neighborhood, gets done in the neighborhood, cutting neighbors' lawn when there's an empty house in the neighborhood, cutting the grass on Outer Drive, which is supposed to be done by government, but when they don't do a good job of keeping up with it, we can either complain about it, which is fair enough, or we can do something about it because we don't want to see that grass getting to be a foot high. So I'm pretty well known by my neighbors as a guy who they can turn to make things better. And then throughout the district, different parts of the district where, you know, it is a large piece of land where I'm not seen as often, they probably know me from my work as a reporter.
I will say the thing that I love about seeing former journalists run for elected positions is because one of your platforms is centered around transparency. And here in the state of Michigan, we don't do so well when it comes to transparency in the government. How do you think you can actually change it from the inside?
Well, for one thing, I'll be a strong voice on city council saying, why are we denying people access to public records? Why are we sending people who request public records exorbitant bills to produce those public records?
Yeah, that's crazy. People don't realize that, right?
Process? Yeah, I mean, there's, and I've filed these same Freedom of Information requests too, and people should know this is not a privilege for the media. Any citizen, in fact, you don't even have to be a citizen. You could probably be from Mars, and you still have a right to the records and the documents that are created by our public officials. And there's a few exceptions, but they're very narrow exceptions. But to me, a lot of what happens in government is dictated by the charter, which is the Constitution of the city of Detroit. It's dictated by rules, but even more is dictated by tone and tenor and personality, quite frankly. And right now we have a city hall where everything's sort of come and get it. If I get in there, my attitude will be, come and get it. Here we go. We want you to have it. We want the public to know what's going on. We want people to know how decisions were reached. We want people to know how their government is working because it's supposed to be working for them. And if it's not, we need to get that ship turned around and headed in the right direction.
So, ML, for the people that live in the suburbs, why should they care about who is sitting on the council in the city of Detroit?
But two reasons that I think won't require much Google research. When the schools went in the toilet, the state of Michigan, which means everybody in Michigan, came up with hundreds of millions of dollars to get the schools back on its feet. The city of Detroit, when I went into bankruptcy, got hundreds of millions of dollars from the people of Michigan to help get the city back on its feet. Quite simply, Detroit is the hub of this wheel that we call Michigan. And when the hub needs the bearings replaced or is just completely messed up, we all have to pay for it. Now, the other issue is Detroit is also the reason why a lot of people come to the state of Michigan. And we want to have our most important city functioning as well as it possibly can. We want it to be a place where we can go to shop, to dine, to recreate, to even just walk around and take in the beautiful architecture, the cool restaurants and bars, and now some wonderful parks, as well as sporting events and concerts, and know that the city is safe, it's clean, it's well run, and that it's a place that we can brag to our friends about. Detroit is a place to be proud of. And while a lot of people in the suburbs may be like, oh, there goes Detroit again, I guarantee you, when they leave Michigan and they're out there in California and Florida and New York, they're like, I'm from Detroit. It's the best, baddest city in the country. How do you like that? Well, that's the way we should feel. We should all feel that way. And really, we all have an opportunity to be involved in Detroit's comeback and its resurrection. All you have to do is want to be a part of it. And I'm inviting everybody to be a part of this campaign. If you want to volunteer, if you want to contribute, if you want to introduce us to people who care about the city of Detroit, ml4detroit.com. Come see me. I got something for you to do, because Detroit's future is Michigan's future.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. With that, ML, I have to ask, I don't know if you were listening in on the governor's press conference, but are you as confused as I am right now on why she's not putting restrictions in place like she was doing just a few months ago?
So I did not catch all of the press conference. I find all of this very confusing, but I also think it's not because there's some sort of cabal out there or some sort of diabolical plot to leave Michiganders scratching our heads. It's because everybody who has any experience dealing with a pandemic that's anything like this has been dead for decades, or they were 1 year old at the time and now they're 103. You know, there is great debate over what's the best way to approach this. Different states have tried different things. Some of it has worked, some of it has not worked. Some of it has only worked because of the climate in those states. You know, I don't envy the governor trying to make sense of all this. And I certainly don't envy my friends who own bars and restaurants and hotels and businesses who have basically spent their entire lives trying to figure out how to get as many people as possible to come through their doors, now saying, I need to limit how many people come through my doors, but I still need to find a way to stay open. You know, I don't envy my friends and neighbors who work in places that have been restricted or shut down because of all of this. And frankly, I'm an athlete. I play a lot of sports, and hockey is one of the sports where we've been yo-yoed for months, where we can play, okay, we can't play, you can practice, but you can't have games. Okay, you can play games, but you have to wear masks on the ice now. I respect what the governor's trying to do. I follow the rules when she puts them out there. I encourage all of us to follow the rules. I read something that was done by a Nobel laureate who looked at all of the literature that was written coming out of plagues going all the way back to the 1400s. And government responds differently. It's always a mess. And this guy said the one thing that every one of these plagues has taught him is that people who are the most afraid live the longest. Now, I'm not suggesting we should live in fear, but I am suggesting we should be very cautious. Wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, and get vaccinated as soon as you possibly can. Because if you want to fill Tiger Stadium or Comerica Park, we all have to be vaccinated. I'm sorry. You might not like it, but you want to get back to normal? Get your ass someplace where they can put a needle in your arm, and let's go, people. I want to see the Spartans in person this fall, please.
Tell me about it.
Why, you want to see them lose in person?
Oh, come on, Ron.
Well, they're playing Michigan, so we should have one win.
That's true. Very true.
We're talking with ML Elrick. He is a former reporter, but you're also now, your podcast is still on, right?
You bet. Soul of Detroit. We just had a great episode that's posted where we spoke to legendary Channel 4 anchorman Mort Krim about some pretty interesting stuff. His conversations about faith are pretty interesting for a guy who's a preacher's son. And he also talks a little bit about his affair with Jessica Savage and everything in between. So you got everything from God to bod, and he's just a really interesting guy, very sharp. He has a book out. He talks about how he got involved with the White Stripes. I mean, there's some really interesting stuff in there.
It is fascinating. So ML Elrick, the name of the podcast is ML Soul of Detroit. And I would imagine people can download it wherever they get their podcast.
We insist upon it. Yes, you can find it on our website too, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. We have a lot of notes on the show. We have past episodes. We tell people how they can buy merchandise and things like that, and how they can contact us, because one of my favorite parts of the show, and Ronnie, I know you'll appreciate this as a journalist, is we have a lot of feedback that we read on the show. We play voicemails. We basically turn a portion of the program over to the audience and say, here's what you want to talk about. Tell us what's on your mind. And if they have a question for us, we respond to it in real time, or we try and get answers and bring it back on a future show. So it's very interactive.
So with that, I have to ask you, what were your thoughts when Kwame was released? Did you ever think you would see it happen so soon?
I thought there was a very good chance that Donald Trump would pardon or grant clemency to the mayor. In fact, my surprise was I thought it was going to happen much sooner. I thought releasing Mr. Kilpatrick would have been a genius move for Donald Trump early in 2020, because it would have allowed the mayor to get free, to become an active advocate and influencer for Donald Trump and his reelection campaign. And if anybody saw the letter that Kilpatrick wrote to Donald Trump, it was effusive in its praise. He basically kissed Donald Trump's butt and said, you and I are pretty much the same guy. We were wrongly accused. We've been attacked by the media. We are victims, and we're good guys who are trying to help people. And I think that Mr. Kilpatrick could have been a very powerful advocate for President Trump, and probably got him thousands of votes that he would not have already otherwise gotten in Michigan. So I was surprised it took Trump so long to grant Mr. Kilpatrick's release. But I think everybody who watched Donald Trump over the last 4 years knows that trying to predict what that guy's going to do, you're better off trying to predict the Michigan weather. Just as crazy. Michigan weather has better hair, but otherwise, you just, there's no way. You have no idea what he's going to do.
That is so true. I was thinking the exact same thing you were. Yeah. I was like, let him out, and if you're going to, do it to help you with the election. So I was really surprised, and now Bobby Ferguson wants out, but I think that ship has sailed for him.
Well, you could argue that Ferguson's already done twice as much time as Kilpatrick, because his sentence was significantly shorter than Mayor Kilpatrick's, mainly because as a public official, when the sentencing guidelines go in, public officials, they get a multiplier that really socks it to them for betraying the public trust. But the fact that they've done the same amount of time means that Bobby's already done, if you think about it, twice as much time as Kilpatrick. And I think you could make an argument that if you're going to let Kilpatrick free, you should let Bobby Ferguson free. If you feel that Mr. Kilpatrick did not receive a fair trial, then you have to feel that Mr. Ferguson did not receive a fair trial. So it's, I think the way this went down really showed that this was political, and that some powerful people received a very special favor from the President of the United States.
But with that, too, Kwame's still got to pay back millions of dollars. Where's he going to get the money?
There is still a restitution bill owed. My sense is nobody is going to work too hard to collect that, but that remains to be seen. He was granted clemency, which is different from a pardon. His sins were not forgiven, just the price that he was supposed to pay for them was discounted heavily.
Right. So we're talking with ML Elrick. He is a former reporter, but also a podcaster for the ML Soul of Detroit, who now wants to be an elected leader. On top of all of that, though, just another minute or two here with you, ML, before we say goodbye, though. Your thoughts on journalism today? Do you think nonprofit or independent journalism is going to be the new thing to get real hard-hitting investigative journalists back into the game?
Well, I think journalism, as much as people like to think of it as being some sort of charity, has always been a for-profit business. News is not free. It costs a lot of money to produce that news. And so if you do not subscribe to the News, the Free Press, the Oakland Press, the Macomb Daily, the Royal Oak Tribune, shame on you, because reporters need that revenue to continue to do the work that everybody wants so badly. And while nonprofits and philanthropic efforts have helped fund reporting positions, before I got in this race, I was working at the Detroit Free Press, and I worked with many colleagues who were funded by grants or who were there as part of some sort of nonprofit program. These are outstanding journalists, very good at what they do, but they're also limited where they can only work on a certain subject matter because that's where the grant money came from. You also have a situation there where very talented people who you want to keep in town, when the grant runs up, they've got to go somewhere. And I don't think you're going to get that kind of high quality reporters and photographers and editors who know their communities the way you really need to know them to do the kind of job that we deserve as members of the public, without having people where you can offer them not just a position for a year or two, but a place to become a part of the fabric of the community that they cover. I've lived in my house in Detroit for 22 years. I moved here because I grew up on the east side. I love Detroit, but I knew I wanted to cover Detroit politics and Detroit government. And I knew that one of the ways that would make me the best I could possibly be in doing that was to be a part of the community, to be invested in the community, and to have to live by the decisions that public officials make. When the trash doesn't get picked up on time, I'm not answering the phone from someone complaining to me about that. I know it because I'm staring at it through my front window. So nonprofits, they're wonderful. It's a great way to kind of get us to the next business model. But the only solution to having a robust, vigorous, aggressive, and public service-oriented media is for us to pay for it. That's the way it's always worked. That's the way it has to work. And you don't go to the gas station and say, boy, I sure would like to drive across town. Can you just put some gas in my car? You know what happens when they do it? Somebody comes running after you with a bat or a gun. You pay for stuff you need, folks. You need news. Pay for it. Come on. It's not that tricky.
Right. And we should point out that your wife does, is she still with the Freep?
Oh, yeah. Pay my wife's salary, please. I should have disclaimed that. But yes, my wife is a reporter for the Detroit Free Press. And a lot of the work that she does goes behind the paywall that you have to subscribe to read it. And, you know, it's something like 99 cents a month. I think that's pretty much worth it. I subscribe to the News and the Free Press, even though I could get them for free, because this is part of supporting the institutions that keep America great.
And we need especially print. We need print to survive. People don't understand sometimes the impact that print has on our communities. So continue to support that. Hey, ML, before we say goodbye, your conversation with Mort Krim, other than him, who was some of your other most interesting guests that you've had on your podcast?
Sure. Well, so we've had Daniel Ferguson, who's Bobby Ferguson's cousin. We've had one of the prosecutors in the Kilpatrick case. We've had Mayor Duggan on a couple times, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey. We've had Ben Blackwell from Third Man Records, who played in a band called the Dirt Bomb and basically runs the vinyl record and retail merchandising operation for his uncle Jack White of the White Stripes. We've had, well, this week we're going to have a guy on who's involved, we're trying to finalize it, but who's involved in writing the Star Wars franchise and is a graphic novelist and just has done some amazing stuff. So we have some public policy stuff. we go behind the scenes in journalism. We've had Rob Walchek on, Devin Skillion, the Night Cam, Tim Pamplin.
Did he wear a bag over his head?
He would not go on camera with us. We do a Facebook Live broadcast, but he wants to maintain the mystique. We had Scott Lewis on talking about not only some of his best stories as a problem solver at Fox 2, but what he's been doing since he became a private investigator. So we have a lot of really good guests on there, and the show's about an hour long. We also have some music in there. There's some alleged comedy in there, and there's a lot of spirited conversation and debate with my co-host Mark Fellhauer and with Sean Windsor, who's a sports columnist at the Detroit Free Press. So it goes pretty quickly, and we have a lot of fun with it. We hope listeners do too. But we also try and make it worth your while to get you some behind the scenes stories and to talk a little bit about how journalism works. I mean, Ronnie, you would appreciate some of the episodes. You wouldn't have learned much because you already knew this stuff, but we talk about how we do surveillances, why it is sometimes we have to jump out of the bushes to grab people. And so we tell those stories and some of the behind the scenes stories too.
ML Elrick with us here on the MegaCast. I will say good luck on your, the election, but I will say we'll miss you as a reporter because we need people like you to continue working in journalism. But best of luck on the new venture in your life.
Well, thanks. They say priests are always priests, and I think reporters are always reporters. So whether I'm an elected official or working for a news organization, when there's news, I'm always going to want to be the first to tell everybody.
ML Elrick, please go to his podcast, support some of the work that he is doing as well. ML Soul of Detroit. ML, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks, Ronnie. And if people want to know more about the campaign, it's ML4Detroit.com.